All right. I'll be back in 5 minutes and then we can start, all right? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Forum Godfunken Eurocast, I guess. We're back.
Yes, we are.
Yes. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well.
Good stuff. Now, we've got more listeners, so that's nice. So let me explain. I'm in the northern part of Europe, and Dante is in the southern part of Europe. And we try to meet somewhere in the middle, really.
Yeah.
In this Eurocast. Yeah. We shoot the shit for about 2 hours on a Saturday. And there's a lot going on this week, so let's get stuck in.
Yeah, quite a few topics to talk about. So, as you guys have seen, the title is the CCP issue. So, we are going to talk about China a bit and how they're going to break my house maybe tonight. So, that's going to be fun.
Ooh, of course, yeah. You got the Kuomintang after you, man.
Yeah.
It's, you know, as soon as this podcast is finished, I have to lock all the doors and move my kids to Switzerland. So, but go on. What's going on with China then?
Before we do that, let's give a brief summary of today's topics, shall we?
Okay. Yeah.
So there's China, obviously. Then we're going to talk about, when people said the EU prevents wars. So the UK and France want to go back to war again, which is nice. So that's going to be another topic.
As one of the bordering countries, I must say, we are stocking up on popcorn. And, yeah.
It's always nice when the French and the Brits are at each other, right? Then we're going to talk about somehow borders can move. All it takes is a farmer and his will to do that. Then we're going to talk a bit about the conference on the future of Europe. Tomorrow is Europe Day.
Yep.
Then
Tomorrow's the day.
Yes. Then we can talk a bit about the Scottish elections. Then apparently tomorrow is the 200th anniversary of Napoleon's death. The Count.
Actually, that was yesterday, I think. Let me check, right? Or was it a few days ago? It was a few days ago. It was on Wednesday, actually.
Okay.
I got that wrong.
So
the
Count is dead, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because not everyone loves him.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we are going to talk about the EU-India summit and what's going on in Porto. And I guess we're going to talk a bit about COVID vaccines getting the free-for-all, maybe. Probably not.
Yeah.
That's going to be quite the topic.
Closing subject. Exactly. So
let's start with China.
Let's get started.
Yeah. So why we're talking about China today? That's because I care a lot about the world, but I care a lot more about myself. And China decided that not once but twice they're going to send rockets into orbit and then fuck them and then come crashing down on us. And Italy is among the places that could be hit by it. So since we are Europeans, we check what the EU tells us, because that's what you do. We have the European space surveillance. I can't even remember. Surveillance and tracking. This is an EU institution that tracks stuff in space to keep us safe, hopefully. And for example, it tracked. It's not just about man-made stuff, but I know meteorites or stuff. Any kind of stuff in space that might harm us. And this is the latest estimate. Apparently, it's going to. This is a nice image here. Pretty much the whole world can be hit by it.
Yeah, not really. I mean, I'm quite safe, to be honest, which is nice, you know.
Yes.
It's nice that my house will not be destroyed, but yours might be.
So
you know, it's a warm feeling I have, and
it's mostly around central Italy. And you can draw a line, and everything below that can be hit by. By it pretty much.
By that lovely bit of rocket. Now the rocket part itself is about, I think it's 50 meters long or 30 meters long. It's quite big.
Yes, obviously it's going to break apart, and most of it is probably going to burn down. But there are going for sure to be some pieces that land.
Which hit the earth. Exactly. I remember that this has happened before, like you said. Right?
Yes, and this is a big boy rocket as well. It's I think the equivalent of Ariane 5, if I remember right. Anyways, it's the biggest they have, I think, and what you would use to get quite a big payload to space. So it's not going to be small. And
Yeah,
this
the
is
thing
not the
that worries
first
me is
time. And the best part of it, and this is something that most people probably don't know. So what the EU and the US do is, and this is because we can as well. It's not like just because we are smart and stuff. But what we do is we have bases around the equator, and we send rockets around where we are sure that even if something happens, they fall either on sea. So
yeah.
we use French Guiana, and they go eastward. So at most they land on sea. And the same is done by the US. What
Yeah, it's
can
very
happen?
carefully by us, by the West, I should say.
Yeah.
Well, Japan does it as well. They've got a large ocean to launch over,
And
so that's also nice for them.
because of how orbit mechanics works, when you launch, you go eastward to get to waste as little fuel as possible. So, for example, sometimes it can happen in the US that they launch stuff on the west coast. For example, there was SpaceX that had that incident, and stuff fell onto the United States. But usually that doesn't happen, and what we do is it's usually falls onto the ocean or into deserts or stuff, right? What China does instead is not give a fuck, and they land onto Chinese ground, and plenty of Chinese people have died. China has been able to kill more people than NASA and ESA combined in all of, and China is not like they started relatively. It's not been too long, right? So it's
Exactly.
in the short amount of time they've been doing it, they already killed more people. Which it's not like
that just deserves applause. I mean, if you can be that callous. I mean, what I remember about the first one that fell was supposed to burn up and in the atmosphere and fall in the South Atlantic Ocean. However, because they miscalculated, I think it was parts of the rocket broke up earlier and hit some houses in Ivory Coast.
Yes.
We're talking about giant pieces of metal just slicing through the sky all of a sudden, and spearing the house. So it's not like this is a big, or it's not like this is a small issue. This, could potentially ruin your day seriously badly.
It can kill you and ruin your house, because if one of those big pieces of metal, for example, falls on your roof, it's not like the roof is going to say, okay, that's fine. It's going to cave in, and you might
terminal velocity here, people. This is not.
Yeah, and if it reaches land, it's not going to be that small, because the smaller stuff that burns up in the atmosphere. And the worst part of it is that China does this because it doesn't care.
Exactly.
And
no, I think
the CCP doesn't have anyone to answer to, and they rather spend a little less, not waste, because of what we do. And when I say we, I mean both ESA and NASA. It's usually have controlled breakage, let's put it that way. So we know that stuff we put up there, it's going to be obsolete at some point, and it's going to have an end of life. What we do is give the design around knowing that. So what they already have some amount of fuel and capabilities to have them deorbit safely, so on the ocean. Usually the Pacific one, since that's the biggest one. And that's a cost, because obviously you cannot do that and it's going to be cheaper.
Yeah, not only
And
that, but there's a patch in the Pacific Ocean which is the furthest away from land, as it were, and that's where all if there are pieces which can't be disassembled by hitting the atmosphere, as it were, planned disassembly, let's call it. They try to aim for that spot particularly. So there's
yeah,
always a little bit of fuel on board, or there's also always a little bit of planning that goes into that at least, and that's nice to know. But China, no way.
yeah. The thing is, it's mostly because it doesn't care. It doesn't really have to care either, because the thing is, obviously, right now we care mostly because, as I said, it's going to affect us. And it's not even the first time, so we are going, what the fuck, China. But as I
Yeah.
said earlier, they do that all the time on their own citizens. Like, literally all the time, stuff falls out of the sky on their own citizens, and China doesn't care. Because
Yeah.
it's a dictatorship, and it's not like they have few people. They don't even notice if someone dies, I guess, because it's not like the Netherlands or Italy that even if we have millions of people, it's what, 60 million people in Italy. If someone
Yeah.
dies, you notice. In China, they have
Yeah.
billions, so they don't care.
Yeah, we're not India, guys. Sorry, I'm sorry. Just for the people that weren't listening last week, we had a long discussion about India and their COVID epidemic, and the conclusion is that don't move to India, basically. So
Yeah, not yet, at least.
not yet, anyway. No.
And yeah, the thing is, I start to wonder if we should, well, it's not if we should, if there is anything we can do to stop, and this is not about just China. Obviously, they're the one that don't give a shit, but in theory, anyone can launch stuff into space, and there's no law, pretty much right now. They can do whatever they want, right? I
Exactly.
think we should start thinking, putting into place measures. And this is obviously something a bit more obvious to the eye because it's a big thing falling onto your house. So it's a bit in your face. But there is another issue which is a bit harder to see but quite important. And when I say quite important, what I mean here is literally the way our entire civilization works is based on stuff we put in space, and we might not be able to put stuff into space in a few years because of
because of all the
space debris.
that's floating around now. I know that ESA and the new EU SPA have bought a number of companies that plan to plan cleanup missions up there.
Yes, we have.
Still, this is something that is a long-term thing, and with this, if this goes wrong,
yes,
or,
but
for example, the ISS is hit. There's nothing that we can do short-term to alleviate the.
Yeah, we. So first of all, when it comes to debris, it's not just about the big ones, because those are the obvious ones. But actually, the big ones are the easiest one, because you can see them, you can track them easily. The issue is the smaller ones that are hard to track, but they can easily pierce and break a satellite or whatever.
Yeah.
And what we are getting to is the point of having so much stuff up there that you literally can't launch anything into space because it's probably going to get hit by something and it's going to fall, and it's going even to be a self-fulfilling cycle, because everything you put up there, it's going to just increase the number of waste, which is going to make it even more likely that if you go up there, you get hit, and if you get hit, it's more waste, and it gets to the point where it's literally impossible to put stuff to space. And when people, it's not just the thing is that we might not realize how much stuff, how much we are dependent on to satellites we have in space. It's quite important that we have those
Yeah.
things up there, and it's literally how our entire society is based
Yeah, yeah,
on.
is now because of the advent of the internet age, as it were.
Yes,
We
internet
are very dependent
communication.
on
It's
information, which doesn't go through cables all the time. You know, I mean, it's nice within Europe. You know, we do have the cables, but to communicate with the rest of the world efficiently, you know, we do need satellites. And
It's not
if they
just
start popping up, you
that
know,
though. For example, you have airplanes use them to some degree, or you have, and I mean literally to plot the way, what's the best way to go from one side to the other. Or for example, we trace climate change. We when it comes to weather, and it's not just weather report, but stuff like hurricanes and whatever. That's all satellites, or even something simple as GPS or
or keeping track of what the
Galileo.
are doing. To be honest, you know, we have to keep an eye on
It's
them these days.
yeah, we have so many things reliant on space right now. So many of those might be. There's probably stuff that we don't even notice. We don't know that it's connected to space, but it is. So not being able to put stuff into space might be quite a big issue. And
Yeah,
you have on one side the ESA, which is literally working to find a way to decrease the amount of debris, and
yeah,
it has as its own mission to always design and prepare so we don't put any more debris in there. Then you have NASA, which is kind of on the same track. It's not as they don't care as much as we do,
yeah.
but they at least pretend they at least try to not make it worse. They don't care too much about cleaning up.
Well, they've got things like parking orbits, and you know, NASA has a lot of experience in this as well,
Yeah,
which is nice.
they
Unique
don't
experience to be able to deal with this.
they don't make it
But
worse mostly.
yeah,
I mean, they have it, they did in the past obviously, but that wasn't. It's not like we knew that much in the past. At least we didn't know better, and at least they try to not make it much worse. Then you have
yeah,
stuff like SpaceX, which doesn't care at all, and
yeah.
they are planning on putting on satellites to give people internet access without having any care about so
Exactly, the
many
Starlink
issues.
program. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, which it's going to have so many issues of its own. And then you have countries like China, which don't care at all.
Yeah, which really don't care, you know. I mean,
And it's not like China
I
is the
don't,
only one. They are just the most
no,
egregious. Just
I mean, SpaceX is relatively okay because they bring their rockets back down, you know, and for
kinda.
things like satellites, especially the smaller satellites, you know, you really don't have to worry because the atmosphere will take care of everything. You know, it will just burn up in the atmosphere. But for the bigger ones, that's the real problem. You know, the big rocket stages, which you know just float out there.
I mean,
That is, you know, they will come down at some point. You know,
yeah,
gravity will pull them down.
yeah.
So it's really interesting, but you know, to come back to that, the you know the effect it has on people on the planet itself is that I don't know if you've ever heard of the rods from God, which is a name for orbital bombardment. The Americans tried something like this in Vietnam once by taking metal staves and just soldering on wings and just dropping them out of an airplane and seeing what kind of effect it has on the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was that it basically had the same effect as a machine gun, you know, horizontally. And you know, you really don't want that kind of stuff to get, you know, the big stuff to come into the atmosphere, because one, it will break up, and these pieces of metal, you know, you don't know where they're going to be, you know, don't know where they're going to be, but also because the size of these pieces, you know, there's no way to survive it if it's your house or, you know, nearby. There have been when the when the first Chinese rocket came down, the people in Ivory Coast managed to find bits of debris for miles, and thankfully the world is a very big place, so the chances of your house, if you're within this this band of effect being hit, is very small.
Yeah,
but still,
most likely it's going to go onto the ocean, because most of the planet is made of oceans. But I saw a comparison which I think is not bad. It's like someone shooting a gun in a desolated place. Even if you are not likely to hit anyone, it's still something you shouldn't do,
Yeah.
So even if it's not likely that it hits someone, that's not a good enough reason to let it happen. And as I was saying earlier, I don't know if we should somehow come up with something. And the thing is, I know when it comes to international cooperation, and it's not even just cooperation, but when it comes to enforcing rules internationally, it's almost impossible.
Exactly.
But I think if we at least try, you can have sanctions that come automatically. So at least they try to not do whatever they want.
I think it's also important that and this is going to sound very controversial, especially on our Forum Gothenburg chat. I think we should be working more with the Chinese when it comes to space technology. It's the fact is that China is still a young power in that, and giving them.
I had a different idea in mind, but keep going.
I know. Helping China is very. I'm not making friends here.
I was thinking of just shooting them down.
Space has always been kept separate from political concerns. We're going all the way back to the Cold War when the space race started. While there was competition, there was never hostility in space. And I think it's very important to, if we're talking about, for example, setting up standards and stuff like that, to pull the Chinese in, as it were, to make it attractive for them to join us in setting up those standards, for example, and kind of provide a carrot and the stick method, for the political kind of mood in the country, the political streaming in the country, to push that more towards a fairer and a more inclusive China. I think that's very important.
Or we could have like launch missiles and just shoot them down before they get into the atmosphere.
Yeah, I don't think they'll go like that.
I never said I care about what they think. So.
No. You're
and
right.
And we have more nukes than them. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but they're so far away, man. Should we really care? Well, this is one of the reasons why we should. But for example, to continue about what I was saying, I think it's really important to not push China into a corner where they can't come out of. I know, for example, this week the European Union suspended the trade deal between the ratification of the trade deal between China and the European Union. So no more trade deal, guys. Because of all the issues with the parliamentarians. Well, we discussed that last week.
Yes.
If anyone wants to listen, it's on the last week's podcast. Sassoli and others being sanctioned by China, and that we can push China into a better place, I think, by being very resolute in how we deal with them when it comes to human rights abuses, but still interact with them on some levels. Because, China, like the EU, is a very large entity. And not every part of the entity is necessarily evil, as it were. When we're talking about China, the EU is completely evil. We all know that.
Yeah, obviously. But I don't know if I understand where you're coming from, and I do agree to some degree. Like I understand that as a way of doing things, you should try to still communicate with them. But I'm not so sure that's going to work. I mean, it's what we have been doing with China since the start, and China has only gotten worse. I don't know if, and I think it comes down to I guess the old question of how you do diplomacy, and for example, do you do sanctions? Do you do sanctions while still giving them a helping hand? Is it better to close it all off? You can do what, for example, the US does with Cuba, and it's not like Cuba has changed at all or cared too much now. So it's not like, it's not easy. The thing is, I don't think we can too much change the way they do stuff. I don't think we can influence them too much. Either way, I don't think if we help them, I don't think they're going to change their ways. And if we don't, they're not going to change their ways. But
Yeah,
I guess
I don't necessarily agree because I'm looking at history. In the Cold War, after the initial rush to the moon and space, the US and the CCP cooperated quite well. On a number of projects, and at the moment, Russia is also still part of, for example, the ISS. And I think it's very important to kind of pull China into something like that as well. Because once they're stuck in, they're going to be, it's going to be very hard for them to withdraw, because it's the new status quo.
Yes, but I don't think the thing is like what would probably happen is they would do some stuff, but still do whatever they'd want, and what you would have is end up with an international government. I think a good example is what happened with the World Health Organization, where they ended up causing up to China to make them behave better to some degree.
Then of course with the COVID thing that basically fell apart because
and I mean during COVID as well, they were China is doing kind of good, except if and I can understand because they could have been real about it and have nothing from China, or be the way they have been and at least get something out of them. But I don't know that it's the right approach. I think we should still. The thing is, when you start having China inside every big international organization like that, it becomes a lot harder to speak out against them. I think it's a good example is in the UN in a few days. I can't remember the actual day, but it's not going to be far from now. There's going to be a talk, a condemnation against what China is doing, literally a genocide, and it's going to be. I remember there was Germany. I think the US as well is in it, and I can't remember someone else. So
UK as well. Yeah.
It might be the UK.
Exactly. The Security Council can't do anything, so the chances of any resolution like that getting through is zero.
Yes, but the interesting thing is China has said that it's has told the countries to not attend it at all, and what you're going to see, it's going to be, and we have already seen it to some degree. There's African countries that they're not going there because they are they're in debt to China pretty much. They are owned by China at this point. And what you have is a world where little by little you can't talk too badly about China. because they've started integrating into our world. And what the thing is, them integrating with us to some degree, it's not having the effect of us making influencing them to be better, but it's just having them silence us.
You see that happening in Europe as well with the universities. That is true. The university, I think it's in Finland and in Sweden that they've, and also in the Netherlands, by the way. That
it was obviously going to be
start making demands on the students when they speak out against this kind of thing, or the staff. So
and that's because. And
it's a very underhanded game, basically.
And it's usually based on simple economics as well. For example, Germany speaking about against China, it's actually a big thing, since Germany has quite the economic ties. It's really reliant on China, and we have all become so reliant on China, and it becomes so much harder to speak against it when it's a lot easier to just comply. And for example, when it comes to university, they can just say, don't speak about it, and we keep getting Chinese students, and that's money for us. So it's, as I said, it's slowly getting us to be worse instead of getting China to be better, which goes back to why I said earlier that I don't know. Like, I understand your idea of cooperation, so we make them better, but I don't necessarily think that it's going to work, to be honest. Like, I guess you can be optimistic about it, and it could work. I'm not saying that it can't work, but it's really hard to see.
I mean, the flaw as well in my argument would be, I think, there's another thing I've just thought of, which is, space is more important now than it was during the Cold War, of course. As a development platform, as it were, for technologies, for military things, but also commercial things. And I think China has not shown much care for intellectual property, and there would be a massive issue about intellectual rights to any discovery made containing with the Chinese on board. That's not to say that those deals can't be made, space research is more important now than it was in the 80s, for example. And I think, but I still think it's very, very important that we disassociate what the Chinese government is doing from what the Chinese people are doing. There's plenty of good people in China that do care about this. The problem is that they cannot speak up, and I think providing the
I don't think that's much, to be honest. I think you forget. We're not talking about a democracy. We're not talking about. What people think doesn't matter. What matters is what the CCP says. As I said earlier, they literally let their own rockets fall into their own cities, villages, and stuff. And I mean, let's for a sec imagine if that happened. In the Netherlands or in Italy. If that happened in the Netherlands, somehow a rocket starts from Amsterdam and it falls into even if it fell in a small town with 20 people in it, the whole country would be outraged, and there would be quite the consequences.
There will be immediate repercussions for that.
Yes.
Although it kind of depends on which town, to be honest. There are towns in the Netherlands that we could do without, to be honest.
I mean, yes, obviously, that's like most of them we can do without quite well.
No. There are some particular towns in the Netherlands, and everyone in the Netherlands goes, no, this can't continue. There's every town, and then there's those few towns that are notorious for being terrible places.
I mean, I understand what you mean. For example, that's obviously, like, for example, if it fell on Paris, would you really feel that badly? I don't think so. But that's besides the question. That's not the issue here. Even the French
true.
would not feel badly about it. I'm not sure. I'm sure about it. They would be the first that would celebrate it. But
Yeah. Oh gosh.
that's not the
Yeah,
issue here.
it's always fun to think about these scenarios, as for anyone who's listening who's not European, it's very European to talk shit about your friends.
Yes.
So
obviously.
this is exactly what's happening here.
And
We all
talking
love
shit
Paris.
about the French
can.
is something all Europeans engage in. And the Brits. The Brits are the best one to talk shit about, especially now that they're outside of the EU. But when it comes
now they're no longer the in crowd, man.
So it's it's a bit different. I don't even care anymore about them. So now it's just the French, honestly.
It's just the French, yeah. Speaking of France and Britain, by the way, it's the next subject time, I think.
Yes.
It's the UK France
war.
Fishing war. Oh, what a beautiful week we've had, people. So what happened so far is because of...
No, wait. I want to make it... before you go into details, I want to give people a brief summary of what happened.
Yeah.
What happened so far is the UK went outside of the EU, and a few months later we have warships from France and the UK against each other. It didn't take long to break to the EU doesn't protect us from war, did it? Didn't really take long to say yes, it kinda does protect us from war. But now go on and explain to our audience.
Yeah. Let me explain how this basically started. So Brexit, like you said, happened. And the fisheries deal in the Brexit agreement says that any changes that have to be made have to be announced and have to be discussed beforehand to things like access papers, documentation, those kind of things. And the government of Jersey, which is a dependency of the UK and is, if people don't know, is right next to France in the Channel. I mean, there's I think it's only a few kilometers away from France, as one of the Channel Islands, is very well situated to disrupt French fishing. What the Jersey government did is they suddenly changed the rules and didn't discuss this with anyone. The French fishermen who suddenly had to get papers to be able to fish in the waters of Jersey were of course upset, and they wanted to blockade the port. Now the UK, instead of mediating, decided to send a number of patrol boats, not warships, but patrol boats. Let's be honest, those things are just, it's
a
ridiculous.
patrol boat, it's still a warship.
Yeah, true, but
it's still part of it's still a military boat, isn't it?
Yeah, but this was basically done for internal consumption in the UK. The French fishermen arrived. There were some scuffles, let's say, and then they left again, and that was basically it for the week. So this happened all last week. And what I would like to just highlight out of this whole story is that I've seen a comparison between the way that the UK media deals with this and the way that the French media deals with this, and this is really marked that.
That's really shocking. I wouldn't have expected that ever.
I know. It's how would the British papers ever react to something like that?
I'm sure telling only the facts and not painting themselves as the victims in this atrocious French people doing bad frog stuff. I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. The Brits are always very, very good at journalism.
I think you almost killed your wife there.
But I mean, it's very marked that basically is still the case, and Boris Johnson is using this. I mean, the only thing the UK government could should have done in this case is de-escalate the situation and discuss this with the EU afterwards. That was the only thing that they should have done. However, because Boris Johnson is Boris Johnson, he
Yeah,
decided to
but
escalate the situation and send warships.
you do
And
understand that there is, you can't put UK and should have done, like obviously
No,
it's not going to do what it should have done. It's the UK. They do
yeah,
the
yeah,
opposite of what they should do.
exactly. It's
Otherwise, it wouldn't be the UK we all know and love, would it?
yeah, that's true. See, people, this is why Dante is much smarter than me, because he remembers this kind of stuff and I don't.
Yeah.
So, but it was a fun week. We had lots of fun. The popcorn was stacked high in the Netherlands, and I think everyone had a lot of fun because of it.
Speaking
So
of popcorn,
that's at least something,
speaking of popcorn, did you bring them out when the French border was
Oh
got a bit
yeah, of
smaller?
course.
Let's put it.
France was reduced in size this week. I mean, what more can you ask for?
It can't get better than that, can it?
Yeah, I know. So this is the story, which kind of hangs into this whole France UK thing. Is that a Belgian farmer decided to move a stone from his field, which turned out to be a border marker, thus reducing the size of our good French Republic that we know and love, and that was great news, to be honest. And I really enjoyed watching, the interviews and the sheer joy that was created by this event.
I mean, who wouldn't like it,
Yeah,
There's less
yeah,
of
exactly.
France because of this man.
Yeah, that's I mean,
That's something
that's
that unites the world,
wonderful. Yeah. Oh, nice, man. Anyway, those were the internal stories that the EU internal stories that were really fun this week, But and also another thing that's coming up is tomorrow. Tomorrow is a very important day, of course. Now, tomorrow is the 9th of May, which is the day for the European Union, EU Day. And there's going to be some really nice events. The Conference of the Future of Europe is going to start with, let me see, I think it's at 2:00 in the afternoon. There's going to be a release for the Conference of the Future of Europe. I'm trying to find it right now.
Which, for those that don't know about it, the Future of Europe conference, it's something that the previous commission started, and it's getting into full force right now. It's fully starting. It's about having conversations of how the EU and Europe should change, what we should do. So hopefully this will bring treaty changes. So actual meaningful
If you want
stuff.
EU to change in any way,
In big,
please.
it's probably at least
this
this
is
is
your
the
chance,
way
basically.
to make it change in big ways. It's not just going to be the smaller stuff. And I do think that we are probably going to get something out of it. The way we have been doing it, I think it's quite clever, having it be a conversation this big. It's going to be a bit slower, obviously, but by having every member of society, people, companies, everything.
Groups, interested parties, basically.
Yes, it makes it.
Anyone can talk about this. So
Yeah, so any future treaty change proposal is going to have a lot more weight to it. Because it's going to be like the will of the people, even if it's not. I still think that the will of the people doesn't exist, because people aren't a person, it's people, so there's more than one will, but that's besides the point. So it's going to be politically easier to fight for it and harder to fight against it. Obviously, you are still going to have countries that don't like it, so there's going to be negotiations, and some stuff might just not happen because someone vetoes. But I think.
But the chances of at least starting to move in a direction could be taken. You know, I mean, I've subscribed to the European Army topic on the Future of Europe site, and I get regular email updates, and it's really wonderful, you know, to see people discussing this stuff and actually being able to take part in conversation on this issue and put it to the forefront. You know, I mean, there are issues that, you know, people care about, and if you have the chance to change, you know, the direction of this massive beast, even in a little way, you know, this massive beast that is the European Union and its member states. And even in a little way, you know, I think it should be taken. So,
and definitely. If you really want to change it, you should start asking for me to become the next Commission president. So
yeah.
That would change stuff
a president of the European Parliament. So people, you know what to do. Next election,
so I'm sorry, but you can't be the president of the Parliament, but you have to be the president of the Council, because you do have the look. I
don't want to replace. You know, we've already discussed this. There should be a homeless person.
I know, but I think you can rock that look. You can have the look of a homeless person. I think you can.
That's true. I mean, the salary is nice. You know, I do it for that. It's my Dutch spirit coming up here. You know, if I smell money, it's like, you know.
Although, if you make me the Commission president, there's probably not going to be a council presidentship. So.
Yeah. That's why I'd say, you know, European Parliament president would be probably easier.
Yeah, because that's going to stay there.
a job with a future, as it were.
Probably more important as well, because, you know, Parliament. Yeah. I like Parliament systems. So you might even have more power.
Going on in Parliament. That's nice, you know. But so the inaugural event to launch the conference on the future of Europe will take place in the European Parliament in Strasbourg on Europe Day, Sunday 9th of March from 2 p.m. CET. So, you know, the 2 p.m. people tune into the European Parliament site and watch and see what happens. You know, I would love to see what all the MEPs and all the presidents have to say on this. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that.
Speaking about Europe's future, we are having a summit with India, and we are talking about. Possibly liberalizing, I guess, COVID vaccines, which I think that's going to be an interesting topic. I would like to know what's your stance on that.
You mean well? There's a few things to unpack there, of course.
Yeah. So let's start with the summit with India. So it's. Why don't you tell us?
Yeah. So this summit's been planned for quite a while. I think it was originally planned in 2018 or 2019. So, you know, at the start of the COVID pandemic, basically, is when this was planned. You know, I mean, the EU and India do not have a trade deal. Would like a trade deal, but there's a lot of there's a lot of difference between our two economies. Still, maybe too much of a difference to be able to expedite that quickly, as it were. You know, we're also talking, for example, to Australia and New Zealand, and that's going much better trade deal wise.
Well, to be fair, it's a lot easier to bully Australia And
yes and no. I mean,
well, I mean, on one hand, sure,
we've tried that with climate change, and it's not working out very well. So let's but that's Australia. But in India, it's really interesting that that the summit now comes at a time when the world is talking about releasing the patent for the COVID vaccines, so that lower income countries can now produce the vaccine on their own and quickly inoculate their population against this. I've been looking into the different questions that are involved, and I think to explain it, that is the problem is with this plan to liberalize the patents, is that the amount of raw materials that you need to create these vaccines in a safe way and make sure that the quality of the vaccines is good enough to be acceptable. I mean, obviously, if you want to come into Europe and you've had a Congolese vaccine, we'd want to know if that vaccine is actually effective, or do we still have to revaccinate in Europe? That basically is the problem. I think as a populist point, yes, let's liberalize the vaccine. It is a good idea because by doing it, you are showing that there is a point at which you don't expect people to spend money to keep other people alive, because a vaccine is for some countries just unaffordable. On the other side, we already have COVAX. COVAX is the EU/UN initiative to vaccinate the whole world, and the European Union has donated half of the vaccines that have been created here in the European Union already to COVAX, whereas some countries really haven't been pulling their weight, such as China, such as
shocking, I tell you.
US, the UK, the big producers, they really haven't been pulling their weight. And I think instead of liberalizing the patent on or liberating the patent on vaccines, I think putting lots of money into COVAX would be a much better idea. So I'm hoping that somehow we can get through to the Indians that this is a much better idea, and see if they'll accept that. If COVAX can be as it were the savior, that would be nice.
Yeah. I want to hear your opinion about a few points here, because myself, I'm not sure where I stand yet. So it would be interesting to know what you think about the various issues here. So first of all, there's the thing that even if we agreed, even if Europe and the US agreed to liberalize the patent, it would take so long before it actually produces a vaccine anywhere. By the time it happens, COVID would already be gone. I mean, when I say gone, it would literally take years, and by then we would already have vaccinated everyone using the vaccines we already have. Yeah, pretty much. And that's because you have to remember that even if, for example, the EU and the US say, okay, let's do that, you still have to fight in court medical, like big pharma, let's put it that way. Yeah. Because it's not like we still live in democracies made of laws, and there's the rule of law, and you can't just do whatever you want. Yeah. There's a contract, there's the patent. We can say, okay, let's get rid of it, but there's going to be, that they're going to fight, as they should to some degree, to be honest. Yeah. And and if by the time they are actually, let's pretend we win, so everyone can use those patents. Yeah. Then you would need countries to. It's not like everyone can do it. Even if the patent is free, you still need machinery and stuff that it's not. We're not talking about something simple. especially with, I think, for example, Pfizer uses a new technology to do it. So you still need quite advanced machinery and people to do that. So that would take some time
definitely.
unless
I mean,
obviously
the
India
advanced
would
machinery
be
is
able to do
really
it easily, or China. Obviously, they would do it a bit quicker, but
Yeah.
it's not like anyone can do it. Just the big ones that are just behind, and even then, by the time they actually manage to make their own vaccine out of that patent, it would literally take, I think I saw as an estimate like 2 years, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we are going to.
COVAX could solve that. I mean, that's why I think COVAX is much more a better idea. I think once. I mean, the problem is right now that here in Europe we would also like to get vaccinated, and
Yeah, and that's
I think
the other part of the story, right? It's not just about even if you have the patent. Like, for example, right now, the actual issue,
yeah,
for example, in Europe, we have the issue that even if we make vaccines, you still need lots of materials. There's like special stuff that it's hard to come by, let's put it that way. And countries around COVID have discovered their nationalistic side and protectionist side, and they don't sell that stuff abroad. They keep it for
exactly. Yeah.
themselves. So, for example, right now, Pfizer uses stuff that start from saying that I think a good example that people would be more familiar with would be, for example, I don't know. Let's put like let's pretend that you have to make a phone, like let's say the iPhone, which everyone knows.
Yeah.
To make the iPhone, inside of that, there's the chip. There's so many components, and even, for example, to make there's the need for gold because there's gold in there. There's rare earth
Yeah,
materials.
right.
There's
Also.
so many stuff. You are going to need materials from, and since we live in a globalized world, probably like from 30, 40 companies around maybe 80 countries, whatever. Like, same thing when it comes to the vaccines. I think I saw one of them, I can't remember which one. It used to take stuff from 40 countries or something like that around the world. So you can imagine how the actual issue right now into making more vaccines, it's that each country is keeping stuff for it themselves, or at least they're hoarding the materials, right? So obviously the stuff needed, it's kind of the same for every vaccine, even if the vaccines are different. They all use, at least to some degree, similar components, or if not the same to some degree. So if Pfizer needs that, and I don't know, Moderna needs that as well, the US is probably going to give it to Moderna.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the help, I guess.
Not
Pfizer is.
AstraZeneca. No, AstraZeneca.
Yeah, that's
They
the
fucked
thing,
up,
though. Yeah, AstraZeneca is a good example of how it becomes
Yeah.
the country that makes it is the first one that
Yeah.
the country that
Gets
makes it decides who gets the vaccines first.
Yeah.
So why would they give them outside before they use them on themselves? No one would do that. Which is why it's important for us to have an actual EU vaccine, which right now we don't fully have. I know that in Germany they are working on one, which they are close to. There's Pfizer, which is not fully EU because it's half German, half US.
Yes, yeah.
So it's a bit different there.
In internet, the globalization has kind of affected businesses, because who would have thought, in 30 years ago that would have been possible, that countries would be slower than that companies would be transatlantic, as it were, when it comes to developing such high tech, high end products. So
So right now
on the
we have
other hand,
discussed
yeah, on the other hand, I think okay, that's a good thing.
the thing is, right now we have discussed the actual limitation of why I don't think this plan is going to work in the real world. I think it's mostly like I understand the idea, but even if everything went right for the plan,
yeah,
I don't think it's going to work given the situation of how long it would take,
yeah,
the
yeah.
scarcity of the
Two
materials.
years, so we can vaccinate the whole world in 2 years.
Exactly, but there's
And
the
these will be ready, and they'll be like, "What we do now?"
so this
You
is
know?
the pragmatic side of it, at least when it
Yeah.
comes to the actual issue. Then there's the issue of should we allow the patents to be infringed, so to say, in the first place or not? And especially, for example, when it comes to Pfizer, they're using a new technology which they're going to use in other vaccines as well, in other applications, let's put it that way. And to do that, they have spent quite a lot of money in research and development, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And the idea is that we're saying, okay, I understand, but we need it because it saves lives.
yeah,
But it's literally what they do. It's literally a
yeah,
pharmaceutical company. They make medicines to save lives. It's not like uh, it's not. That's literally what their business. So
yeah.
you
So,
say it
so
now.
not only
What
that,
happens next?
yeah,
Why should
not only
they spend money on research and development uh, if after like let's say they do it now, okay, let even if it's not COVID, the next one, let's pretend they find, I don't know, AIDS, an AIDS cure, because I saw that's something that might be possible using the same technology.
yeah.
Should that not become free as well then?
Exactly. When does
and
it stop? It's
and I
at some
understand the
point
idea
be
there's
interesting for pharmaceutical companies to develop cures for things because of this. And not only that, but the don't forget that the patent rests on other patents, and which
yes.
one do you need to free for those? For the machinery, there's no end to it. Freeing the patent is probably going to at least discourage the pharmaceutical industry from making investments, and that's exactly the opposite of what we want, because the free market works in that it creates new products very, very quickly, and
Yes,
this is the reason that
I think the idea is
as quickly as we do, really. I mean, this technology that we have now would not be able to be thought of 5 years ago. The mRNA vaccines and the technology to make all this stuff. 5 years ago, it would have been impossible to do that. But because of because of the pharmaceutical industries,
which
investments,
they have already been, which is
so
something that um, you might even not even know, because I saw it as when it comes to people that are scared about the vaccine, you can one of the more I guess reasonable doubts is the idea that it came out so quickly. So how did they even do that? I don't trust it because it's
yeah,
too
yeah,
quick. But the
yeah,
truth is that COVID-19 is a coronavirus which pharmaceutical companies have already been working on for years. What
yeah,
happened is COVID came out, and so they shifted all their research in that specific one, and we eliminated all the bureaucracy. And when it comes to bureaucracy, not the actual tests,
yeah,
but making the test be done in parallel instead of serial. So to go from A to Z, instead of having to do A, then B, then C, then D, and so on, they have been able to do them all at the same time, which obviously is going to cut the amount of time needed a lot. So,
Yeah.
but the thing is, they were able to do that because they were spending money on research and development, which is why Europe and the US are the biggest centers when it comes to research and having these kinds of technology. If we now make it like, and this is the point where I'm not sure where I stand. At least I'm not sure what's the best way, because on one hand you have the idea that if you make it free, you kind of kill Europe's market when it comes to pharmaceuticals, because let's say for example Pfizer, you have the vaccine now, they free the patent, so China and India and everyone else can gain all that knowledge.
Yeah.
Why should they keep doing it? Why should they do it again in the next time?
Pharmaceutical industry, there would be no pharmaceutical industry left, at least in the countries that liberalize these vaccine.
The only way to make it go forward is if you use state money. Otherwise, you can't. It's literally the only way.
Yeah.
So,
or of course, ask the United Kingdom to sacrifice themselves. We've done it before. We can do it again. Yeah.
But on the other hand, I understand the idea of having the whole world like go together and say, like, let's pool our resources instead of having a competition, and have everyone have access to because this is medicines we're talking about. So maybe we can rethink how patents work when it comes to this sector. I don't know. Because there's on one hand like the common good, but would the common good be better with? I think in the short term you would probably have more stuff happening if you make, or everyone can use the patents. So you would have probably more people working on that stuff, which hopefully should allow like you have more people working on it, but less money that goes into it, because without patent there's no money to be made, so it's hard, you know.
Yeah, and I agree with the idea that the patent system in some way has to be reformed. You know, I mean, let's be honest that things like a copyright law can be quite harsh when it comes to entertainment products or other things. I mean, yes, it does need to be reformed, but just releasing patents and creating the possibility for or destroying the possibility for companies to make money in the investments that they have is just a bad idea.
And since we can't come to a conclusion, let's hear what our guest here, all glory to the EU, great name,
yes, of course.
thinks about it.
So my concern with changing patents, I think you have one hand you have copyright law, which is separate from patent law. So for entertainment products, that's what that covers, which is certainly a mess, certainly has a lot of problems in and of itself. But when it comes to patents, that's a separate issue. I thought it was the USA was the only one that was pushing for the vaccine patents, for the vaccines not to be covered under patent law.
So what happened is
the EU also consider doing that? I know the EU has been exporting a lot. The US has not exported any at this point. So they're trying to. I think I see removing patents on their vaccines as a way of covering up for or covering up for, say, not exporting enough vaccines when they should have.
It all started quite a few months ago, actually, mostly from India and other countries asking for it. What happened now is the US changing its mind and accepting it, kinda, and being a proponent for it. And now the EU is considering, and this option, and it's going to talk about it in this summit in Porto. So we don't have an EU stance on it yet, but
Ursula von der Leyen has said that she's provisionally for it. She's definitely willing to consider it and discuss it.
yeah, we are more for than against as of now, but it's going to be a discussion that needs to be had, and it's as with everything, even
Not something they can solve in one summit. I should say.
It's not like even if we agree on it, there's the matter of how you do it, what you.
Where you draw the lines, what you release, what.
Yes, do you go all the way down to the machines you needed? Do you do just the like? It's a lot. It's really complicated. So there's obviously we are talking about it in a yes or no way because it's a bit easier for us to have a discussion. But it obviously in the real world it's never yes or no. It's always more complicated, and it's more like yes this way, yes that way. No, but let's do this. No, but let's do that. So it's all you can expect the summit to come up with something which is going to be followed with another summit in the future because that's how the EU works. You're not going to get anything definitive right now. That's for sure.
The EU works very slowly, but the outcomes are also always pretty good. So
by the time the EU is going to have an answer, COVID-22 is going to come around. So don't worry.
I think I see the issue with China. I haven't been part of the stream very long. I just joined. But my concern with this whole kind of CCP USA Cold War now is honestly getting dragged into it. I believe in strategic autonomy for the EU and for Europe. And the last thing I want is to have the EU following the US. Like my issue with the Trump years was that the EU could have pushed for more strategic autonomy, and it felt like it didn't, and that was kind of for me a bit of a letdown. Because now it feels like with Biden engaging with the CCP, it seems like the EU is slowly getting dragged into it.
I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends. We do agree with the US on things like the South China Sea issues.
Yes.
With